Alrighty, welcome everybody to the end of the year of the Ecosystem podcast. Unfortunately, Will Dorrington is stuck on a train between Scotland and his home, and so is not going to be able to join us today. Well, that was the excuse that he submitted. Being that Anna works with him, she was like, "That's funny, he wasn't going to Scotland today." So who knows? Maybe he's just helping Santa with his elves. But that aside, Chris, why don't you tell us why life is so freaking amazing at the moment?
Oh man, there's a lot going on. That's a trap.
That's brilliant.
I need a drink for this one.
Man, it's a trap. Life is so good right now, Mark and Anna and Andrew. I'm very happy today. It's been wonderful.
You look like you've had a good day.
I've had a shit day, but it's cool. We'll survive. No, it's just been one of those days where it's like I've had to make some decisions where other people have failed to make decisions.
Yeah.
That's where we'll leave it.
I remember having a boss years ago. This boss years ago said to me, "Listen, if you didn't have shit days, you wouldn't know what really great days feel like." And so, it's part of the cycle, right? We have great days, but it's hard when you're depending on people, right? And you get let down.
But we're always depending on people, right? Who's not depending on people?
So I've always had this thing where I'm like, if I can't, I'm a control freak, so I'll do it myself because I know I'll do a good job. And it's just this one thing where I don't give things away. And I was like, okay, I'll give things away. I'll rely on people. And then when I do it, nope. So yeah, I'm a little bit aggro right now. So if I get ranty more so than usual, it's because I've had a shit day.
That's okay. Andrew's really distressed. He had his second sip of wine.
Wow.
Oh no.
That just means I'm behind.
I am not sure, but on the last podcast, you might have mentioned there was some announcement that you're going to be making shortly.
Yeah.
What are you up to?
What am I up to? What am I doing with my time, or what am I doing with my life?
I think that day of the recording, you were going to say something to your boss. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. What was it?
So are we talking about? We're talking about my professional choices, I assume, not
okay.
Not my choices in patriotic Christmas stockings, right?
Honestly, when you put that sock up of the stocking, of the US flag, it's the time of year where you just do some trashy things, right? And I'm not saying that that's trashy, of course.
That's trashy. That's trashy.
But Meg and I have been watching this, this series of, I don't even know what the name of it, but they go into these rooms and they talk with people without seeing them and decide if they're going to marry them. And then they get engaged and they haven't seen the person and then they meet and stuff.
Oh my God, I love that.
It's an American.
Love is Blind.
There you go. That's
no.
But there was,
what's it Married at First Sight.
Is it? Is it the
Why would
American?
somebody do that?
The room?
That sounds stupid as shit, man.
Yeah, the rooms. I think it is Love is Blind. The
Blind.
pods, exactly.
We also love that.
And there's one dude, and he is American everything. He has American socks on. He always has an American flag shirt on. Yeah.
He was a terrible kisser. He gave those very pecking. Yep. Yeah, terrible.
We're really good with Freshy TV, guys.
So that's what it reminded me of.
Why would somebody watch that?
Honestly, because you're fried at the end of the day. You've just got your kids to sleep after hours of them not bloody sleeping. And you're just like, I cannot think about anything. And I can laugh at these freaks that go on TV and do the shit.
Yeah, man. Exactly. Okay, look, I'm with you, man. I downloaded an old 80s cartoon that I used to watch when I was 8 years old or 6 years old. I watched it the other day. I'm like, wow, this is bad.
That's probably smarter.
Yeah.
That's probably smarter, though.
How many sitcoms, etc., have not aged well? Right? As in, I think of Little Britain, right? Little Britain used to be my favorite go-to. Now you watch it and you're just like, oh my gosh, the amount of racism, homophobia, gender stuff, just extreme.
Yeah.
My all-time favorite sitcom is How I Met Your Mother, and every time I watch, Anna and I over the last couple of years, have rewatched all 10 seasons of How I Met Your Mother. And we say all the time, usually having to do with Barney, it's like, oh my God, that is not acceptable.
That's normally
Cannot.
misogynism, yeah.
Yeah.
Misogynism is a kind description. So still a great show though.
Surprisingly, we watched a movie the other day, which I think is it American Pie, where he goes and puts his dick in an apple pie?
Yeah.
Right?
Also, it's a Tuesday.
And the thing is that movie we thought would not have aged well. Yet it was actually it was okay.
Yeah.
It was like there's nothing like.
Because everyone still eats pies these days. I mean, it's so relevant.
Andrew was just telling us before how much he enjoys a pie.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes.
Look at this. He's got no comment.
It's like this.
Oh, this is awesome. I love it. Back
Andrew,
to your
I just have to
stockings.
throw this out there. You just got taken to school by a man with baubles as earrings.
That is exactly, that's the kind of man I want to get taken to school by. So
Nice.
That's it, man.
Tell me, who's in the most Christmas spirit?
You are. That's
You
a
are.
magical shirt.
It's first thing in the morning. I haven't even been drinking. My last gin was like 9 hours ago.
wow.
Right.
Yeah.
39 hours ago.
Yeah, well, it was the day before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Quit early.
Yeah, man, what's your problem? Sort your life out, Mark.
Yeah. Anyhow, of something I want to discuss with you all.
See, Mark, that's why you're always so fresh, so full of ideas.
He is the freshest man on this podcast.
It's the morning. You guys are at the end of your day, right?
Oh my God.
Yes.
I'm at the end of my tether.
Like we already had a full day of work. We unpacked some because we're still moving in, right? You know, we've had an argument, we've had dinner, we've been through everything already.
Is that why you're in separate rooms?
No, we're in separate rooms
That's why he's got the
Andrew's
blanket
very
on the
loud.
couch.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
I don't get that.
Anna, was he in the wrong? Was Andrew in the wrong? On the
He's
argument?
Of course he was.
Of course he was. We knew the answer before we asked the question.
I mean, of course. What was even with that question? Well, see, we were talking about things that are never gonna get old. This is one of the things that will
Yes.
never get old.
Me being wrong.
Yes.
Nice. I'm happy to know at least that things not getting old is within my power. So I will carry on being wrong. That's my commitment to everyone.
And being young.
Being
And
young.
being young.
Yeah, you said
Mark.
not being old. Well, we won't get old, yeah.
Right.
What do you think is your favorite theory on what went down at OpenAI with Sam and his firing? Because there's so much speculation and no real transparency, right? What's your favorite theory?
Somebody panicked. Somebody panicked. I'm telling you, somebody was like, nope. This man knows too much. He's too smart. Everyone's so clever. What do we do? Shit. Get rid of him. And yeah.
Do you think that they got, there's the whole thing of Q-Star being it could handle math calculations brilliantly, and that they knew that the play forward was as if you can understand maths perfectly, all of a sudden most science is built around maths, right? Most financial system is built around maths. All of a sudden, if you've got a AI that is a perfect mathematician, did that, and they say Isla, the lead guy in the tech side went kind of, oh fuck, he could see where this could go.
Yeah, they thought they were driving towards sentience AI, right? Which is, we're very far away from that, I think. I get why, right? But I think that's part of it. I always think that with these types of scenarios, there's a left and right hand thing that's happening around. And I think there's definitely got to be money that's being passed around, and there's definitely going to be a power play as well. That to me was just an excuse. That was like, oh, fine, we need to do something, so we'll do this.
Yeah.
I've wondered also the extent to which, and I'm going to maybe disprove what my original theory was here, right? That the vision for AI inside of OpenAI basically is this groundbreaking technology that we have created. Are we squandering it by building a bunch of co-pilots to infuse inside of existing Microsoft products? Basically, has the vision for this magnificent technology become too narrow? And I could certainly see someone taking that position if you were going to be really aggressive with how the technology is used. What kind of refutes that idea, though, is that immediately following, most of the company wanted to jump ship and go to the very company that was building that was doing this, Microsoft. So
yeah, and at this point in time, we're building like co-pilots to co-pilots. So even the statement of narrow, really, I'm not sure. Can we even define it anymore?
Yeah, though I think Microsoft is doing this so interestingly, and there are there's some things that I think will be revealed to the world from a Microsoft perspective in the fullness of time, as they would say. But I do think that there's lots of evidence that Microsoft is really doing a good job of balancing the co-pilots and the co-pilots for co-pilots, sort of this non-sexy, what I refer to as incremental AI, that is way less sexy than you might imagine, but still damn useful. But they're doing a really good job of balancing that investment with investment in some pretty amazing things that are not my story to tell. Again, fullness of time, but I'm impressed with how Microsoft is handling this.
The thing is like, it was interesting. I don't know if you saw the podcast that Steve Mordew did with Charles Lamanna. But it's worth a watch because, there's been some confusion around, is it Copilot for M365? Is it Copilot for Dynamics? Blah, blah, blah. And the naming conventions. And I like how straight up Charles was. He was like, mate, this is moving so fast. Like, yes, we've this has been developed in flight type thing. And so, what we said back in March, we've thought about it a bit more and we're iterating on it. And I think you got to allow them the grace to iterate, right? That not everyone's going to it's a moving target. I mean, I couldn't believe it. We just celebrated the first birthday of ChatGPT the other day. A shit ton has happened in this past year. I get people now reaching out to me and go, how does it apply to my business? Like, how does it practically apply, to my business? And this one lady I spoke to yesterday in Australia, she's an executive assistant. And they just had a conference of executive assistants or something to that effect. And the discussion that came up is that some big research organization, like, I don't know who it was, I won't say a name because it won't confuse things, had said that 54% of all executive assistants will be replaceable by AI. And that she said it set a rocket through this community of, we need to get up to speed and become experts on using AI in every part of our life, whether it's scheduling, whether it's, absorbing large amount of information and putting it into a way that's consumable for whoever they're in EA to. Like, what are all the different ways? And so, I actually did a side call and just showed all the ways that you can use it to create presentations, to when the presentation's like a one-off on the fly, an internal one, not a public-facing one, how can you look like a real guru in it, and how do you use AI and stuff? And I'm really big on practical AI. And at the moment, I feel like a lot of co-pilot stuff still sits in the realms of, wow, good demo candy, amazing. Some of the stuff, Chris, is it coming out of your team? I think we've got them on the podcast next week. It's massively practical, right? And I love what they're doing in AI. And then I tell you another one. Have you looked at GPTs in OpenAI? I went and took and I created a GPT I took the 700-page Success by Design document, fed it to it, right? And now you can just query it on anything. Give me an example of an ERD. Yeah. It builds it out in Python for you, right? And showing relationships and explain to me, and it does it. And it's because it's trained on that. And then this week, Microsoft, well, over probably the last 6 weeks, they've dropped a shit ton of playbooks. I don't know if you've seen these come up.
Yeah.
Heaps of playbooks for anything, for Azure architecture, for ALM, best practice. And I'm like, all those you can now put into your own. You don't have to make it publicly available at GPT. Just use it for your own team. Take all that body of knowledge, put it in there, and keep feeding it over time. I think you'll create a valuable internal resource for, I'm just thinking, take RFP responses, creating really articulate answers to the questions that are absolutely on point, that don't go into things like, hey, your staff, have they had a background check? And, do you vet your staff before coming into the organization? This is the correct answer. This is not the correct answer. I think it's really important to go, how can we use technology? You like that, Andrew? That's a private joke, by the way. If you haven't worked it out, we're not going to go into details of it.
So trying to get myself serious about this again. So I told you guys earlier that I just finished yesterday the copy for a white paper that I've been working with some folks from Microsoft on, and the assumed title is going to be Crafting Your Future-Ready Enterprise AI Strategy. And the whole when we get back together in January, we can dig into the paper itself. But basically what it's meant to do is to walk technology leaders, CIOs, CISOs, CDOs, and, for that matter, chief financial officers, their teams as well, to walk big organizations through how to build and then execute and action their AI strategy, rather than just like, I want this and I want this and I want this. Chris, can we get some raptor hands on that? Thank you. So, exactly. Anyway, the paper makes the distinction between incremental AI and differential AI. And the distinction really is that incremental AI is AI applied to helping a human become more precise, more efficient, more accurate, faster, whatever it might be, in a task that a human would have otherwise performed. And that's where a lot of the co-pilots fall in. Whereas differential AI, we could think of that as being aspirational or sort of moonshot AI. Those are the things like DeepMind's AlphaFold, that AI model that they built, or some other really interesting things that I've seen about classifying and interpreting, pouring through more medical data than any one human possibly could take on in order to extract diagnoses and patterns based on where people live and sort of other factors like that. And the reason that I think, at least right now, that this is an important distinction between incremental and differential is because organizations need to be looking at balancing risk across their portfolio. The differential AI are the bets that are less likely to work out, at least in these early days. So you need to kind of adjust the risk tolerance within the organization for how much do we want to implement that's going to make a real impact for us, making us more precise, more efficient, faster, whatever, versus what kind of experimentation do we want to do? What kind of impossible problems do we want to take on? And I think that to me, that's a useful model for kind of looking across an organization's portfolio of AI investment.
I think that's really cool and very useful because we've already been talking about so many types of AI, and I don't know, this has been recording for like 15 minutes and maybe we talked about 5 minutes about real stuff and not, marital dispute. We've already mentioned so many types of artificial intelligence, and it just makes me it just makes me think, like, do you guys think, that is my favorite wine.
It is.
Do you guys think that like there's a real business to be built here? Because I'm still dealing, I don't know about you, but for people to look at differential AI, that's like super overwhelming. So what Mark was saying earlier and showing someone how to build like a presentation or how to feed any sort of AI engine a set of materials. Can you imagine like to be able to ask a licensing question and someone to come up with an answer? Like no one can come up with answers about licensing in Power Platform right now, right? Or no one I know, at least. I definitely cannot. So that's really, really important. This way, it's more tangible for people to go ahead and read Andrew's paper and think, oh, I can actually come up with some sort of AI strategy. I can actually do that. And the other thing that's really, really interesting is, like you were saying, Mark, the grace to give people the chance to iterate. And that's not just for artificial intelligence strategy and work, but that's for everything. Do you guys still work with people who are like, no, I need to see a plan, and the plan needs to be, it needs to have certain steps, and we need to have a high level of confidence with it, and you better take into account all risks and considerations and mitigation scenarios, and only then are we going to be able to build on something. So there's no iteration space there at all.
Yeah.
And that's just not reality anymore. Like, how do we deal with that?
Or flexibility in thinking.
Or flexibility in thinking, that's right.
This, I think, is a really important principle that, again, I'm sure we'll get into more when we dig into the paper, but particularly in differential AI, organizations are going to need, and I'm not thinking Microsoft and Google and partners, I'm thinking, the customer organizations.
Yeah.
They really are going to need to make some serious changes in how they budget and manage and measure the effectiveness of their IT investments. Because if you treat development in AI the way you treat the implementation of a new ERP, you're cooked. You need to treat your investment in what is at this point still an experimental technology, not because it's not brilliant and not advanced, but Mark, what you were recounting Charles and Steve's conversation about how we don't know exactly where it's going and it's a moving target. What you need to be doing is you need to be putting a few chips down, structuring the work in a way that, hey, I need to see some sort of result in the next 2 to 4 weeks, and then we'll decide if we're going to put more chips down. And you also need to have the discipline to walk away from something that isn't working out, either because the technology is not there yet, or I think because the data that you have to train the model isn't there yet. But you need to have the discipline to walk away from a sunk cost as well.
Yeah.
But, it was interesting you said if you treat it like an ERP, or it's not going to work. And I'm just wondering if a lot more companies should be taking on the idea of we need to do our own internal R&D on how this applies to our organization, and think of it like that. We need to do some research. We need to develop our ideas. We shouldn't just be going, let's jump on the bandwagon and implement AI. I think there needs to be a lot more room for research, and research how it applies to your business. What are the use cases that are going to work? Because it's not like anybody's just woken up and I've got a million use cases for this, right? It needs the context of your data and the outcomes that the business, wants to drive. And I think there needs to be this kind of research facility introduced back into businesses that haven't done it for so long, to actually fund, trial and error to find out,
But do you think that without that research capability, it's just easier for people to say, well, I gave you company X, all this funding, and we talked together, and I didn't know anything. Like, you were supposed to be here and advise me and tell me what to do, and you didn't tell me, or you didn't tell me well enough, and it's clearly your fault. So I feel like to some extent the lack of internal R&D does come from this opportunity to avoid accountability in a way.
Yeah, valid.
It's quite scary, actually. I think it is really scary. Like, we have this whole thing where I'll try and give you a scenario, right? Like, do you remember? Man, this is years and years and years ago when Microsoft Office was released. Okay, like one of the versions. Let's just pick 97. Okay, that's an easy one, right?
I was really sad that Microsoft Works was going away at the time, and it's just
yeah. Oh, damn. And when they released it, there were no R&D departments. People were like, like this is a business productivity tool we have to use. Like, it's just something we know we have to use. And I don't think many companies, well, I don't know of many companies who dragged Office through an R&D cycle. It was just, okay. And then I don't think there are many businesses that put ROI cases against every email they sent or every Excel they built. They were just like, this is a tool we have to use. Like it's something we have to use. Let me tell you, with AI right now, we are lucky we have a prompting screen, because in 2 years' time, there will be no prompting screen. This will happen to you, right? So if if R&D parts of the organization that exist now, like innovation and R&D, which is why I am interested in innovation, if people don't start taking this stuff up, like actually it's going to be far more detrimental than they even know, because this will happen to them in their business without any research or any plan. Okay. And I think, like, Anna, you made a good point, right? Like, it's up to us to tell people this. Unfortunately, there are going to be people that don't listen, but that's on them, right? Like, we can only say as much as we can, right? And I think like that R&D function has to be paired with a return on investment function, but it can't be on every single little thing you do. It has to be on the wider story, and actually, like, productivity. What does that mean? So that's just what I've started to see, right? So when we go into companies, we actually tell them ROI per use case is bullshit, because it won't work. It's the same as low code. Like, we will ROI every one of our 25,000 apps and flows that we make. Crack on. Good luck.
Yeah.
You will destroy the R if you do that.
Yeah. Right.
There's some statistics that I've shared in a number of presentations recently. Chris, I think you were there when I shared these at the Emergency Services Tech Show in Birmingham.
Great presentation, by the way, dude. Really strong presentation.
Thank you. And I think that these are so interesting. So and I have to read these specifically so I get my numbers right, but in the United Kingdom, between 2010 and 2019, there was an 11% average worker productivity rise in the most productive firms, whereas the least productive firms saw no rise. In Canada, productivity growth tripled in the most productive versus the least productive firms from 2000 to 2015. And in the US, the 75th percentile of firms, so if you look at the firms in the 75th percentile in terms of their investment in R&D and modernization and technology, they enjoyed a return on invested capital 20 points higher than the median. And that gap had doubled since 2000.
Yeah.
So the reason I love these three statistics is that it bears out that the organizations that are spending and spending wisely, right? Not just spending kind of randomly and haphazardly, but the organizations that are really deliberately investing, that have a strategy around R&D, and then taking that R&D and making use of it, are really starting to pull away from the median and certainly from the least productive firms. And I think what is happening here kind of behind the scenes is that we're seeing this two-tier economy emerge, where you have the firms that are doing this wisely and are making smart investments and actually taking R&D seriously, and then everybody else. And the metaphor that I like here is the fable of the boiling frog, right? You take a frog and you put the frog in boiling water. The frog recognizes that the water is boiling and the frog jumps out. But if you put the frog in room temperature water and then gradually turn up the temperature, the frog doesn't realize until it's too late. And what I think is happening here is that many firms they're that frog. The water is starting to boil around them, but they don't realize it yet. And they don't realize that they're sleepwalking into the wrong side of the two-tier economy.
And you're talking about large organizations. What about everything that sits in the SMC space that's not even thinking like this at the moment, or anybody that's sitting in what's the space below SMC? SMB. Yeah.
But you know what? It's really easy now. Actually. Even for SMC, SMB, and without a lot of research capability or energy or whatever, and I'm not saying that there isn't gonna be that huge difference between firms who do their research and like plan and have a strategy and vision, and organizations who do not. But I'm saying it's just so easy to adopt new technology now because the new technology is very adaptable to the old stuff. So let's just say you've been working on a project for like the past 5 years. Yeah, let's just say you're doing that. And you're using some old tech. Like maybe you're still using some on-prem even, and some of the functionality may be very manual, etc., etc. You really just need a few folks to pay attention to Ignite and then Inspire and all these big conferences and take some notes away. And with the capability that technology has right now, you are able to start including some of that new stuff, such as, I don't know, fabric or some of the artificial intelligence capability, even if it is not the co-pilot that you install on your new organization and then you need to move your data to North America, etc., etc., etc. It's still like the opportunity now to adopt technology and to be able to start doing a bit of research is enormous. You no longer have to plan and like put money aside for the last quarter of next year. That's when we're gonna start doing it. You can do it right now without a huge amount of investment.
Yeah.
And that's what's fabulous from my perspective.
As of May, so I agree with you, Anna, and I think that one of the things that you should always be doing, right, in business is looking at what your competition is doing, or in some cases, what they're not doing. So I'm sure this statistic is somewhat outdated, but as of May, 40% of American small businesses reported being uninterested in AI tools, right? Well, what that does is that creates a mind-blowing opportunity for the 60% of small businesses in the United States that are interested and maybe are going to seize the initiative to act. And I think an interesting companion study to that, Donna Sarkar got me turned on to this study from the Boston Consulting Group, and I'm not as conversant yet in those statistics because I haven't shared them in multiple conferences at this point. So, but basically the gist of one of the findings in this study is that AI is actually tending to benefit the people, kind of the median performers, right? AI actually is statistically bearing out right now that if you're an average performer, AI can help bring you up to the level of productivity and the level of performance of the top performers. So there's oddly a real equalizing opportunity here that probably will be on the whole pretty good for humankind and for like the working professionals.
I don't know. I don't agree.
That's exactly what I was trying to say.
Oh, I like that. I like when we don't agree. Chris, convince me.
No, this is dangerous. This is a lawsuit in the making.
That's fair. I know where you're going. And that's fair.
I think that Donna is very hot right now, and for everyone who wants to learn a little bit of AI, all they need to do is like follow Donna.
Yeah, just follow Donna.
Just read everything she posts.
It's so funny because when Andrew,
Donna, she's so hot right now.
When I went to when you were talking there, Andrew, and you mentioned Donna, in my mind I was going to mention Donna because of one slide I saw she had up somewhere over the last week, where it had, if you're looking at the AI landscape, 40% of it is around data.
I love when you say data.
And you might remember that graphic. And
I have the slide. I'll pull it up for you.
Oh, I love a good slide. Bring me the slides.
I just thought, it was that one kind of, I don't know, perhaps you shared it, Chris. It might have been on LinkedIn. And I was like, man, that people really need to understand what that one small graphic is showing, because so many organizations don't get that 40%. And I want to give you a practical example of small business. Yesterday, my wife met with our accountant, who's been my accountant for maybe 13 plus years. And she was discussing our new business activities and what we're doing in our own business. And, And he didn't realize that, the stuff that I'm doing in AI and stuff. And he was like blown away by the lack that they have in the accounting. And he's got an accounting firm of about 30 odd staff, and massively concerned that they're going to get left behind. And when Meg was telling me this, I was just riffing in my mind, what would I do in that scenario going in? And if I was to do a talk, to a small accounting firm, and straight away they do a survey at the end of a financial year to every one of their clients that says, a whole bunch of questions, qualifying questions about how their tax is going to be sorted out and stuff. And that's all a manual process for them. They capture it electronically, and then they answer one, answer two. They got to go through, and like nobody got time for it, right? That is like, we need to extract a few of the numbers, otherwise. And I'm like, listen, you could run AI across all of that data, and how did everybody answer question one? You could then plot that and go, okay, what were the outliers, and are the outliers concerning? Because there we're going to actually have to run a follow-up call with that customer and address this. Or would it allow them to expose whole new tax minimization opportunities for their customers because of certain things? They could give a lot more robust, because I don't know if this is the same overseas, but every accountant in New Zealand has now become a business advisor. It's kind of like as they've expanded the accountancy game, they've got into business advising, and that's a really big part of their portfolio of what they offer now. That was just me thinking in 5 minutes. There's so many ways I would run AI in the accounting profession as someone from the outside that I think would create massive improvements.
So that's exactly what I was saying, Mark. So last year, at the beginning of last year, let's just say, how would we tackle this problem? Well, we would go there and we would help them re-engineer the way they do surveys, right? We would try to implement new technology on how they do surveys. And then we would capture that data into like a certain type of way. And you know what I'm talking about. And then we would do like graphs and analytics and so on and so forth. Whereas now, you were able to just go in there and say, hey, dude, I can actually work with your answers right now, as you have them right now. And this is exactly what I'm trying to say. It's just so easy, even if you're behind, to start making some steps to gather some information and then start doing some, revolutionary changes, some true digital transformation. And I remember this summer, Andrew has this uncle. He sells spices. So naturally, he's a multimillionaire. I'm not even joking. So the guy sells rosemary.
And he once owned the largest supply of catnip in the world. So that's
so like
thanks for letting me know that, man. Wonderful.
Yeah.
The dude is fascinating. He's just fascinating. He's like in his 80s, I guess, nearly is, right? He fixes boats. He's out on a boat all the time, but he's really brilliant. So he comes by and we're like working, but he feels like having a chat. So he sits down in front of you and you're like on a call and you're like, okay, whatever.
He just sort of looks at you until you realize you got a house guest, man. Come on, get off the phone. Talk with me.
So all of a sudden he starts talking to me and he's like, so what do you think about this AI business? Like super startled, like the guy sells rosemary on the internet, like not that, but anyway. I'm like, oh, Neil, how do you mean? Like what side of AI? He's like, I have decided it is way too complicated. So what I'm gonna do and what I do right now is I look at my next competitor who are a big business, and I just steal whatever AI technologies they're doing because they like to brag. So Andrew Zanko revolutionized his entire marketing strategy using artificial intelligence in his 80s to make his business flourish, because he doesn't want to be as big as the next guy, because first of all, he makes way more money by being a smaller business, but he's just implementing the same things. these are some of the methods SMB, SMC could follow as well. And that's not a bad place to be. Like, you're just not reinventing the wheel. And with artificial intelligence, it's just so easy to do it right now.
I just to pivot slightly, or to recap, or go back to a point that we didn't explore. Chris, you saw that there was going to be a legal case or a disagreement with what Andrew was saying earlier. Andrew, can you put your point forward again, just so the listeners don't have to go back and rewind? And then Chris, I'm keen to hear your thoughts.
Basically, what I was saying is that there's a study out there that has found that AI really benefits sort of median performers and helps those performers to perform, and we're talking about individuals here at a kind of a higher level, and that benefit seems to be outsized, kind of around the average, right? And what I was saying is that insofar as that phenomenon tends to bring up the productivity and the performance of those kind of in the median, that's probably really good for the economy and for kind of the state of all of these humans in the minute. And I know where Chris is going to go, and I don't disagree with you, but
I don't know where Chris is going to go. So where are you going, Chris?
I will show you where I'm going.
There's a lot of risk there, I think.
Oh, it's something way more dangerous than that, man. Digital equity. Yeah. So what's going to happen is that when you look at the way in which AI is released across companies, there's a problem where you're going to have, let's say, Andrew and Anna, you're both in recruitment, right? And Anna, you get given M365 Copilot. Andrew, you don't. Okay. So you're both reviewing 1,000 CVs. Anna, you're able to reason over the data in those CVs really quickly, bring 50 candidates on board, and whack, there's your paycheck. Andrew, you still reviewing the 1,000 CVs and get 2 candidates on board. Now, Anna, you might be a subpar recruiter, and Andrew, you might be a great recruiter. You just got unlucky. What's happened is that you don't have the tools to do your job, all right? And if you look at the way in which tech is being released in these companies, they call it rings of release. So a ring of release works exactly the same way as an update works, where you'll drop it in rings, right? And what you'll start finding is that when people start trying to adopt this stuff, if the adoption plans aren't done correctly and the right training, I'm using the word training very loosely, we call it enablement, isn't given, and you start watching the monitoring, people that aren't using it but aren't able to do their jobs correctly are going to really struggle, and they're going to start comparing themselves to other folks in the company who are doing really well, those subpar potentially performers. And I think there will be a bunch of legal cases that come out that say, you know what, like, this isn't fair. We've been unfairly treated, especially in the UK. Yeah, so digital equity in this whole thing is going to be huge. Now,
this is so interesting.
Yeah, mate. So you wouldn't have seen this come out in the low code stuff, and the reason is because the low code stuff, you still had to be kind of driven. So this would have come out in Office to an extent, but people adopt the way they adopt, right? But the gap that Anna was talking around between subpar performers versus par performers, all of a sudden a subpar performer is now really strong, and this whole concept of digital equity versus digital equality is going to come out. And I'm telling you, in the next few years, this is going to surface, and it's going to be a problem.
I think it's going to be awesome.
I believe that a subpar performer will still be a subpar performer with AI as well.
With AI, but if the AI isn't released correctly out into the ring with the rings of release, what you're doing is you're actually stunting other people. There's a whole big study on this.
Yeah. No, I can definitely see it. A couple of things that spring to mind out of this. One, Copilot, which was, I think loosely first implemented by Microsoft in GitHub, right? Was it GitHub that it was first released in? Or was it GitHub? Or was it GitHub? Or was it?
I think it was GitHub Copilot.
It was on the developer side, right? What they've shown, what data is showing, is that it enables a good developer to become an amazing good developer, right?
Yeah.
But a bad developer or a learning developer, it is a disadvantage to them because they try and use it as they don't know what they're talking about type thing. And so therefore, Like I was talking to a bloke yesterday around AI and how he'd used it for a customer and it lied, right? It gave a hallucination because he didn't know his data. He didn't know it was hallucination, right?
Yeah.
And the customer came back and said, what the freak is this? And I think that it could be a dangerous tool in the hand of somebody that doesn't know what they're doing, but it doesn't make them better. It just makes them, it becomes glaringly obvious, if there's a mistake.
Yeah. Well, it amplifies everything, doesn't it?
Yeah. One last thing, think bigger. I saw it on your slide there, Chris. It prompted me that I've seen a bunch of your team on LinkedIn with the Think Bigger jerseys on or hoodies or whatever.
Oh, yeah. We've had
It's obviously
fun.
an internal thing. What's it all about?
I think we could easily negotiate this. Really, really easily.
So what's Think Bigger about? Tell me.
There's a bunch of different meanings, man, but I think the main one is that the corporate culture of this company is that of a trusted maverick, right? So what we try and do is we try and do stuff like really differently. The whole idea is that like we want to disrupt, but positively, and we want to do things a little out of the box. So when people are driving down the left lane of the highway into the line of traffic, we're like, well, why? Go the other route. Like do something different, do something bigger. Yeah, it's been interesting, man. I think the culture is really awesome, and I think that's why we've been allowed to go down the route of actually productionizing things in AI. I mean, you're going to talk to John and Mike, I believe.
Yeah.
And those dudes had time to build out their own prompting engine that creates entity relationship diagrams. It's taken 8 to 16 hours of my work when building out user stories, and it's made it 1 hour. They made their own model-driven app Copilot. So that's what it's all about. It's really just thinking really differently.
I love it.
Hoodies for all of you.
Yes, thank you. I just want to share my screen here quickly and play a video to you. And listen, if you're watching the podcast or listening to it, remember we do the podcast. The audio version comes out a little later than the video version. The video version is, I'll get Andrew. Andrew, where can they find the video version? What's the name of the site?
Cloud Lighthouse. So it's cloudlight.house/ecosystems.
Awesome. Go there. Watch the video. I'm going to share one of our avid viewers of the show. He submitted a question in video format. So what we'll do is we'll watch that and then we'll go through and let everybody give their answer opinion based on what has been requested.
Nathan Rose is my spirit animal right now.
Here he is, Nathan Rose.
How do you respond to someone standing in front of a burning house asking if they should put a fresh coat of paint on it? Kia ora, everyone. I'm Nathan Rose. I'm a lead consultant and Microsoft MVP based here in beautiful Auckland, New Zealand. Over the past few months, I've become a massive fan of the Ecosystems podcast put out by Mark Smith and Cloud Lighthouse. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, they have some incredibly smart things to say. I highly recommend it. So the most recent episode of Ecosystems talks about the centrality of data in the ecosystem and the fact that many organizations and consultants erroneously put the app, the workload that we're implementing at the center of the ecosystem when we should be focused on the data and getting that right before we go working on the app and whatever it is that we're building. So the episode reminded me of a recent customer interaction that I had, and I'd love to share that story and pose a question back to the ecosystems team for feedback. So I was recently asked to help out with a pre-sales opportunity. An organization here in New Zealand wanted a customer portal, pretty standard. I was asked to attend a late stage meeting with the customer. They're most of the way through the sales process and they just need someone there to answer any potential technical questions that pop up. You know what this looks like. You're not there to challenge, probe, or otherwise rock the boat. You're just there to answer specific questions that they have. So over the course of this meeting, the customer's lead architect says, we're actually in a really good position here. The core system you're going to be hooking up to is custom built on premise, and the one person who understands it has been with this organization for over 3 decades. Yeah, that was said in 2023. So alarm bells are flashing at this point because while the customer feels their greatest need is for a portal, the reality is they have this antiquated core business system that is presenting a massive amount of risk to their organization. And the purist in me would love to do nothing more than stop the meeting and say, time out. We can't talk about anything else until we've addressed this core business platform. You have no business talking about a portal until we've addressed and fixed this core business platform. Now, anyone who's worked in consulting for more than 5 minutes knows why this is a terrible idea. The customer's stated felt need is for a portal. There's budget for a portal. There's attention for a portal. They don't want to talk about anything else. The core data system is out of scope. It may be on a technology roadmap somewhere in the organization, but it is not a priority today. There is no attention. There is no budget. So my question back to the ecosystems team is this. As a consultant, how do I navigate that natural tension between where the customer is focused today, where there is budget today, where they will do things today, versus where they should be focused? And how do I ensure that I don't lose those opportunities that I have today to work with the customer while ensuring that I am taking them towards where they need to be, the things they need to be focused on? In this case, this core business system that is presenting a lot of risk to the organization. Look forward to hearing your thoughts. Can't wait for the next episode. Thanks so much for watching.
Wow, what a great story and what a great question.
I love it.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So why don't we just go around the room? I was like, I'll say mine first because so somebody doesn't else say it. But let's not do that. Let's Chris, let's take your view on it. You've just seen that fresh. What are your thoughts? What would your guide be? And of course, he explained something very specific in that the challenge you have as a, he's been brought in and the salesperson has told him.
Oh my God.
And they've read the riot act, right? Don't fuck this deal up for me. Right.
Right.
All you need to do, if they have a question, answer that. Because I've been in the situation where I've gone, oh, this is wrong. And I've been caned afterwards by the sales rep. You didn't need to go there. You didn't need to. I'm very big at calling out elephants in the room, and I've probably become more aggressive the longer my career has gone because it's created good outcomes, right? Anyhow, before I go down there, Chris, tell me your thoughts.
I actually got into trouble for telling a customer to not buy PSA years ago. I told them, I sat in the room, I got absolutely spanked afterwards, but I'm like, why? I don't believe in the product. It's shit. Like, I don't buy it. Sorry.
I mean, that was good advice.
Yeah, right. Thank you.
I've had some recent experiences, but it was dynamics for HR. We'll just, yeah.
But the point was, and he's like, okay, and I do want to do the best thing here for the customer. However, how do I not miss out on this sales opportunity right now?
Yeah, this is hard. So in my role, right, I'm effectively a pre-sales person. Okay, so like I'm responsible for both selling and consulting. That is legitimately what I've been doing since 2010. Okay, so I get where he is, right, and I understand why he's in the position. So I do something, and I can only speak from my own experience, right, because I'm like you, Mark. I have zero problem telling people that this is a shit idea. The one example I want to give you, and then I'll tell you what I think about this, is that recently I was working with a firm in the UK, and they told me that somebody had architected a solution on top of SharePoint. Now, and it was private information, PII, and I said to them, it's SharePoint for a reason. And I said, absolutely not. And what was funny was that I was watching the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, and one of the solution architects, she was shit hot, man, so good at this stuff. She was like clapping. Okay. In this scenario, right, this is a double-edged sword. You have to consult. If you want to be a trusted advisor, you have to consult. You have to tell them that they have a much bigger problem than X, right? So let's just get that out the way. I don't believe that a sticking plaster is the right thing here. You have to tell them that actually you have a much bigger problem than this thing, a temporary thing or a tactical solution to help them, okay? But you say, look, we will do a tactical thing that will help you here to do X, Y, and Z. However, your biggest problem is this, and if you don't do this, that solution is null and void anyway. So I would hit it from both angles by being a consultant and telling him the truth, but also saying, look, from a tactical point of view, we can solve the immediate problem with something like X, okay? But you would have to bring them together, and do not lie. Like, that is the one main thing. If you see a problem, you have to point it out as an advisor.
Interesting. And I think how you point that out is going to be critical. Andrew, what are your thoughts?
One thing that I want to point out here first is that I appreciate the difficulty of the situation, and not because, listen, you have a technically smart person who wants to kind of offer the best advice, and you may have a conflict with the sales motion that is happening. But I mean, that is a difficult situation. But I think that kind of is one of those things where you can boil that down to what's the right thing to do for the customer. And I think that if you hang that idea, what is the right thing to do for the customer, in the sky as your North Star, that's gonna always guide you. But one of the difficulties there is that you can be perceived by the customer as trying to actually sell them more things. So that's what makes this a sticky situation. I have no doubt that Nathan in this situation, right, is wanting to do what's best for the customer, but I also have no doubt that there's a naysayer in the room from the customer's perspective saying, no, this guy is just kind of a wolf in sheep's clothing trying to sell us more things. So I just want to get that out of the way first. I have some high-level strategic thoughts on this, and then I have some practical guidance. I'm going to start with the practical guidance. I think that if you have as your North Star that you always are trying to do what is best for the customer, even if that is at the expense of a short-term sale, I think that the way that you need to present this is that you need to take on the persona of an educator, not a salesperson, and not even an architect. I think that you need to say, listen, I appreciate what you're trying to do from a short-term perspective. You have an immediate problem. We need to solve that. We can solve it. It is technically possible to implement a Band-Aid or a plaster solution here. Here are the benefits of it, and I think you need to be sincere in acknowledging that the benefit is we're going to solve a very immediate problem for you. But here are the downsides. The downsides are that we are putting a Band-Aid over a much bigger problem. We should be, in an ideal world where time and money are no object, this is how we should solve the problem. And I think that over time, that is the way to earn the trust of the organization that you're working with, and they might be internal to you. You might be part of an internal IT team giving guidance to your business colleagues, like your business or your operations colleagues. So I always think that when you have to present bad news like that, the best way to do it is to do your very best to take on the persona of an educator, of a mentor, of a coach. Like, I'm here to coach you through what I acknowledge and understand is a very difficult decision where you have to weigh, immediate need and cost and time and all of these sorts of things. So that's my very kind of practical answer.
Nice.
As a companion to that, I think that this is why ecosystem-oriented architecture and taking a more strategic approach to your cloud investments is so important. So, we've been talking a lot. I mean, this podcast this is the Ecosystems Podcast. So we talk all the time about ecosystem-oriented architecture. What is happening, it sounds like, in the scenario that Nathan presented, is a very point solution, kind of old-fashioned way of looking at things. What I would try to do if I were him and if I were in that situation is I would try to guide that customer towards saying, hey, listen, I totally get why you're trying to do what you're trying to do. There is this emerging and quite successful, at this point, school of architecture. We call it ecosystem-oriented architecture. Let me explain to you how this works. Let me explain to you what the principles are. Let me explain this. So again, we kind of come back to this: be a guide, be a coach.
Yeah.
A lot of technologists, I think, always want to be the magician. And I think that the persona to take on is not of the wizard who does mysterious things in the back room and then brings you magical objects, but tries to guide your customer. And I think that this is the crux of what ecosystem-oriented architecture is all about.
I like it. Anna.
So I'm a bit in between what Chris's approach would be and what Andrew's approach would be. And I cannot forget the fact that, our consultant is there to just answer questions. Yeah, so he's gonna offer answers to whatever questions he's been asked to give. But as that consultant, I would actually focus on where I see the problem is. And the problem is a people's problem there, in my opinion, pure and simple. That was a system created by someone over 3 decades ago. I believe that, and I would actually try and understand whether they want to create a portal because actually they want to get rid of that huge risk of that person who like created the system over 3 decades ago and they don't really know what's there. So I would start with that, and then I would go into ecosystem architecture, because ecosystem architecture does mean that we will connect everything together and we will use a lot of aspects of Microsoft technology, but not necessarily at the same time. So hybrid solutions are actually perfectly valuable to begin with. I would try and prove value like that, and sort of bring out the fact that really what you're looking for is not necessarily the best solution, but we could get there by using, all of this rich technology that, ecosystem, the Microsoft ecosystem offers us. And whilst doing that, we would alleviate some of the biggest risks that they have, which is, again, a people's problem.
Yeah.
That's how I would go about it, actually. Your turn, Mark. I'm so curious. Ever since, honestly, you mentioned, it was so hard for me to focus on anything else.
So there's this guy called Chris Stedman, and he's a director of business strategy in Microsoft. And I remember I was doing a co-training session with him, with GBBs. He said, you got to understand, when people come to us and they buy our technology, this might be something they've done once before in their lifetime or in their career, maybe twice, right? We do it day in, day out. We have expertise. We have years of experience of doing what we do. And sometimes you need to explain that to a customer. This is your first rodeo. This is my 1,000th rodeo, right? There's things that I have seen that I'd like to bring to the table here so you don't make the mistakes that we see. And you got to do it in a very humble way, right? It's not about, look at me. It's about going, listen, you're in good hands because I've got experience. And I love what you said, Andrew, about come as an educator, not as the wizard that can pull things out of a hat. Too much in IT has been sleight of hand wizardry in people's experience, right? And that, my password's not working when you're on the help desk, and the guy's like, tap, tap, oh shit, the service needs to be rebooted. I'll reboot it and go, can you try that again? And they enter it. Oh, you must have made a mistake, when they just know they started a service, right? Sleight of hand shit that IT has been doing for years to make people feel that they're dumb when it comes to understanding IT, because the IT person doesn't want to lose face. So you got to be careful, right? That's why you got to come as the educator. You got to come as humble. Now, I think also tying in what Anna has said there, I would have go through a meeting like that and show that we can absolutely deliver what they're looking for. And then I just had it with a car manufacturer recently on an RFP. They had asked for all the stuff in an RFP. In this case, they wanted a Dynamics 365 sales implementation, right? So they wanted a CRM, basically all I'm saying behind the scenes here. They went and asked all the stuff, blah, 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 tick, tick, tick all the boxes at RFP. We go to orals, we present, and we show that we met everything. And then I said, so there you go, 100% meet your specification. I said, but can I just bring up some stuff that you didn't ask about that I think is really important to your organization? And then I went into another 5 to 10 slides around all the stuff that they didn't know around advancements and technologies that applied to their business that would have massive impact. So one of the examples were there was going to be a call center involved. And I said, listen, if we put biometrics on the qualifying of somebody calling in, we will shave a minimum of 3 minutes off every operator per call. Let's look at the cost impact of that, right? Shit, didn't even know this technology existed, right? And so by the end of it, they were like, oh, actually, we need to adjust the RFP because, so in other words, we said we could deliver, and then we said, hey, but here's, like Andrew, what you said, but here's the power, here's how we think about platforms and ecosystems and things like that. Because, and then, you know, the other stories I would add in, the bus effect, right? If that dude with his 3 decades of experience and he's the only one that's the guru of the system, what happens if he gets taken out? Do you have solid documentation, etc. around that? I would decide whether that was going to be part of my story. But one of the things that, and on my 90-day mentoring challenge, I really encourage people to read this book called Getting Naked. And the whole book is a fable set in San Francisco around a massive consulting firm and a medium-sized consulting firm that keeps beating the big consulting firm. And one of the things, they have these they face these fears of consultants, and one of them is of calling stuff out that is going to kind of drop a bomb in wherever the discussion is going, and knowing how to do it and doing it in a humble and curious way that doesn't come across as, yes, that's going to be, now we're going to sell you X, Y, and Z behind it. And that's why I think, back to what you said, Andrew, you're there as an educator. You're not there. You're not coming across to, how many people can we get on it? But, the other thing is that I've often used, because I live in New Zealand, and if I'm on a New Zealand-based project, which is very rare that I am, because I'm generally outside of New Zealand, the projects. But we had an earthquake here. And in that earthquake, companies disappeared because their data got totally wiped out right on premise, because their buildings got crushed and destroyed, and let alone the human toll. And then I use 9/11 as another reference. How many businesses had their data sitting inside one of the world towers, and that got wiped out? And this is how I go into why cloud is important, why redundancy, why geographical redundancy is so important. And when you're in a country like ours that has a high rate of seismic activity, you're only too aware of a news or article of why a proper redundant strategy is important. And anything on-prem that's important to the lifeblood of a business these days, I'm like, yeah, I'm super. So those are kind of the different angles. I think that the key, though, is understanding that people conversation, understanding that you're there to educate. But I would do that after we were quite clear that we could deliver on whatever I was brought into the room to deliver on.
Yeah, I think that's really, really good. Also, I really love your comparisons. I'm not sure they work very well here in the UK, because those are all acts of God, and everyone knows that God will just avoid.
I thought you were going to say God doesn't exist, and I was like, well, that's a whole different subject.
No, but this is that stuff would never happen in Great Britain ever.
So you'd never get floods in Great Britain? You'd never get a snowstorm that cuts off power for days? Or
I mean, yeah, we do, but even those are not people don't bother themselves with such thoughts, I feel.
Yeah, valid.
I'm surprised the place doesn't flood more frequently.
Me too, actually, me too, but
That's because even the water doesn't want to be here.
This is as your American, South African, and Romanians all
I know.
living in Britain are
right, exactly. No, honestly, I used to work with this company, and they used to send all of their messages through a server that lived underneath a desk, and that server obviously just kept going, unplugged, or it would freeze and stuff like that. And I kept saying, guys, what if there's a flood or an earthquake? And they were like, yeah.
Can I share just sort of a funny story from my earlier professional days that, Anna, you just reminded me of? So I worked for a company in the Washington, D.C. area, and a lot of the work that they did was for U.S. government clients, U.S. government agencies. And one of the practices that's very common there is that when someone reaches someone who's been a government employee, and they've been a senior employee, and they kind of reach the end of their, and I was quite junior. I was young, but anyway, one of the practices that's very common is that they'll hire a senior person away when they retire from the government. They'll go to work for private sector. And the whole reason 100%. Is that they have a lot of knowledge and, they have a lot of connections and whatever.
101 consulting, as in big consulting companies, right? Yep.
Exactly.
Hire someone with the relationships that knows where knows where all the bodies are buried.
This guy was named Wayne. And Wayne.
What was his last name?
I do
Wayne as well.
Actually,
Wayne.
I did have a colleague named Wade as well at another point, but this guy was named Wayne. And Wayne, one day, he calls me over and he says, "Hey, I'm really struggling. Can you help me with something?" And I say, "Yeah, sure. What is it?" And he said, "Well, I've noticed that you send emails very quickly." And I asked him a few follow-up questions, and he said, "Well, what I really would love to know is, can you send an email? Can you send an email to more than one person at a time?"
Wow.
And I was like, "Wayne, how are you doing this now?" And he said, "Well, when I want to send the same message to multiple people, I type the message and I send it to someone. And then I copy and paste that message into a new email and I send it to the second person." And I said, and you do this as many times as needed in order to send it to the group that you want to send it to? And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Okay, so I'm going to show you." So you just type the email in and you put a comma in or a semicolon in, and you can put another person. And he said, "And can I put 3?" I said, yeah, you can put 3 in as well. Anyway, this was, but the point is that this was a very formative experience for me in my, in the younger part of my career, in that I think that what it taught me is to not take for granted that everybody knows even the things that you think are the most simple things, and to kind of approach that with a degree of humility, which is difficult, right? Because what I wanted to do is I wanted to die laughing and call every single person I could call to tell them the story.
Instead, you waited for 20 years and you told the internet.
Yes.
Instead, I've waited for almost 20 years to tell this story. It's true.
That's solid gold. Absolute solid gold.
Yeah.
And that just got me thinking. The CC field, right, stands for carbon copy, right? In a BCC blind carbon copy. To most people in the modern world, if I ask my kid what a carbon copy was, what's a carbon copy? Like, isn't it funny that those terms have come from 20, 30 years ago of technology that you would never use today?
Do you remember the movie Big? Tom Hanks, Big, where he sort of
swaps with his kid or something? Yeah. Yeah,
he's a kid and he becomes an adult overnight physically, but then he's got, so, and I remember he goes to, I haven't thought of this in decades. He goes to this, to this employment shop or whatever, kind of placement, and, or file for unemployment or whatever. And the woman behind the desk says, "Fill this form out in triplicate. Give me the pink copy back. You'll hear from us and you'll get a decision in 6 weeks." And now I'm just thinking, who even knows what triplicate is? It's like the disk icon as well. Like, why does save?
Dude, I was just going to bring it up. Look at that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's cool. That's so cool.
You do have an interesting set of tattoos, Chris.
Thank you.
As we draw to a close and wrap up, a couple of things. Christmas gifts from Microsoft. What are you getting? What do you got? What are you thinking?
For me,
that's a good question.
For me, it remains fabric. That's the Christmas gift.
The Christmas gift.
I think fabric hitting general availability. That's like the the bicycle or the set of skis under the Christmas tree. That's the big ticket, ticket item. I have a stocking, I'm going to call it a stocking stuffer from Microsoft that I will share. That has gone really under the radar, and it's obscure, but I'm really geeked out about it. Has anyone heard of integration environments? Anyone seen this?
No, I have not. That's news to me.
Okay, so integration environments, and you'll hear why I am so geeked out about this, is that it's part of Azure Integration Services, and the idea is that very similar. So if you're in the Power Platform world, you're probably very familiar with environments and solutions, and how environments really allow you to logically group components, so apps and a data model and tables and everything and then to build ALM on top of that, and to build security on top of that, and so many things. So think the same principle with integration environments for Azure Integration Services. So what integration environments allow you to do is you can establish a logical boundary, and I think it's in public, it might even be in private preview right now, but the supported components are, I think, service bus, queues, logic apps, and functions. Maybe those are the supported components, and you can you build these and you load them, you group them logically in your integration environments, and I think that's a really subtle but really important capability to building the kind of integration neighborhoods that we've been talking about in ecosystem-oriented architecture, where rather than building point-to-point integrations, you're building reusable, repeatable components and standards and processes from an integration perspective. The other thing that's cool, that's kind of the companion to integration environments, is this business process capability. So now, rather than just sort of building out your service bus topics and queues and your logic apps, you can actually map them to steps in a business process, and where these integration motions align to something that's actually happening from a functional perspective. And I'm just connecting some dots here. I have not seen this on the roadmap, but to me, this seems ripe for taking AI capability and marrying it with both the integration technologies, but also with what's actually happening in the business, and having building some sort of model to basically run with this from a process optimization perspective. Nice. So that's what's in my stocking, and I was super excited when I saw it.
I love it. Huntingford.
Dude, I don't care. I just want a freaking M365 Copilot per user license. That's all I want. I don't care about anything else.
I love it.
Bring me,
care.
Santa, bring it to me.
I love it. I would have to echo what Anna said, in that I think and probably more, if you're a consultant listening to this, I think one of the biggest areas of investment in your career in the next 12 months would learn everything you can around Fabric. Learn it. It'll touch every part of what you do in Microsoft Business applications massively. What would I like? What would I wish for? One, that AI Builder would go away and become part of Copilot Studio. And the reason is I think it's confusing people. I think it confuses people to have inside the Biz Apps thing. Come on, put it there, have one tool. The other thing is, with Google's announcement with Gemini, is they show amazingly the concept of solving a problem and how behind the scenes it would build out a liquid interface. In other words, the interface changes based on the topic, the data, everything. Whether and in the concept of a chat virtual agent, there's sometimes in a virtual agent that a text-based response is not the right way to represent the data. It should be a visual response. It should be an auditory response, etc., etc. What they demonstrated in the interface design, that the interface not only changes based on the first kind of inquiries, but as it gets refined, it'll keep modifying the interface based on how to present data in the most optimal way for the backward and forth happening with the AI, which I just think is sick. So this kind of the interface is up for grabs, and it showed how it actually defines all that behind the scenes and redevelops someone's question to make it more clear, etc. but really using the full fidelity of what future interfaces could look like.
And how much into detail it should go as well.
Yeah, amazing.
At some point it stops. It's like, oh, okay. That was too much.
Back on the OpenAI thing, and just rounding back to where we started, I can remember why the math issue is a big problem. Why Ilya apparently shat his pants on what it meant. Is that it meant, with the right amount of compute, every encryption could be broken.
That's right. That's right.
Every form of encryption could be broken very rapidly. And that's before we get to quantum computing, right? And so I think that there was a oh fuck moment. Yeah. Every banking system, protocol, etc., destroyed instantly. Every passwording, hashing, blah, 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 problems. And so that was, it's not necessary that it's become sentient, it's become so smart. Another little thing I saw the other day is that I think was Einstein had an IQ of 160, I think.
Around there. No, I know it's post 150.
Yeah, so 160. I think that GPT-4 is currently at 155 when it does an IQ test, and they reckon within 5 years it'll be at around 6,000, right off the scale type thing. What will that mean for humanity?
Huh.
Do you mostly use GPT-4?
Yeah. Yep, and my own GPTs. I've started developing my own GPTs, so just for personal, right? So personal use stuff. Being able to, you know, I'm doing some training at the moment for some Microsoft staff, and I do a big case study. What I was impressed is that the speed that the Microsoft folks just took my PowerPoint, which let's say 10 slides of facts, size of organization, turnover, all this kind of data I have in there of my fictitious case study. And of course, it leads into all the various sales plays. So based on your role doing my training, you could see where you were going to take the story. The speed that they just dropped that straight into AI and had it summarize and be absolutely concise, I'm like, that's smart, right? If you're working in, agile supply chain or something like that, the speed that you can ask questions to what are the top 5 challenges in this industry right now, and it goes out and gives you reference to the challenges. We needed a demo recently for an organization, a government organization, and it's a big organization, dealt with the military, and the speed that I was able to find out their challenges out of news items and stuff in the public domain the last 12 months, and then to play that back. I understand these are probably some areas that you're facing challenges with inside the organization. Bang, bang, bang. And everyone's just like nodding. And I'm like, I would have never had time to research all that shit. Right?
Yeah,
I just sent it out, got it back.
Right.
I validated the references, like read enough to go, yeah, okay, it's not bullshitting. And then played that back, and then going, hey, if I was to build into a solution, what would be their And I was just able to create, going to the old ERD way. I'm like, I start with data and model out what I think the app should be. The speed that AI accelerates all that and allows you to turn around and do a demonstration to a customer where they're like, fuck, you've already built this. No.
Yeah.
Just amazing.
But you need to know about it as well. I just did just a little thing, and I asked it some questions, and I just wanted to create a little project to see if something would work or not. And to be fair, the results I got were 70-30. So 30% of the stuff that I got back was not accurate, was in fact incorrect. Either because it was old information or because it was information from AWS or Google Cloud.
What model were you running? Were you running GPT-4?
I was not.
Yeah, I find so many people are farting around 3.5. It's 3-year-old. Like, don't touch that. Pay for the proper version. Get on the latest stuff, because honestly, I can tell the minute I haven't, like, the settings are switched back, because the answer is such bullshit. I'm just like, fuck off. I'll reprompt it. Here's the other thing. I think everybody should be doing at least 5 prompts a day.
Oh, for sure.
That could be around image creation. It could be anything. You need to force yourself and go, what are my 5 prompts today? Because I think if you want to learn AI, beyond doing courses and stuff, you need to actually fucking do it every day. So it becomes like muscle memory because your prompts get better and better. You're like, I know how to position this. Often, like, my wife will look at I'll come up with it and she's like, wow, that's an amazing output. I'm like, but look at the prompt. Look how I readjusted it. That's how I tuned it, if you like, to get to that point. So you do, and as you say, you have to know stuff, but I think you've got to get really good at going, sometimes, and there's so much data in the political arena around this, the way you ask a question totally influences how it gets answered.
Totally.
Right? And I think what AI does now affects that massively.
And then you can't forget what it told you before, or at least, okay, not GPT-4, but it can actually forget. Like the
window's a lot, the memory pool's a lot larger now. Yeah.
Right. So if most people are using that and are a bit disappointed and are like thinking, what are these people talking about? AI is pretty shit still.
Yeah.
That's because
you're on the old version.
You're on the old version, yeah.
Yeah. You're in the embryo version. It wasn't even born.
Embryo version, that's right.
Right. It hasn't even been fertilized. Oh, sorry, it's actually only the egg and sperm phase. You're not even at embryo yet.
I mean, it's not that bad, but yeah.
I had an experience recently where, and it had been a while since I had the need and the time to sit down and build an app. And recently I had a need and I made some time to do this. And I sat down with Power Apps Copilot and I just started to converse with it. And it got some things right in terms of the data modeling. And then I got to, I needed to create some status reasons in this table. And I said, listen, I need some status reasons, and I need my inactive status reasons, my active status reasons to be A, B, C, and my inactive status reasons to be X, Y, Z/Z. And what Power Apps Copilot came up with was an active status reason that was A, B, C, and then one other inactive status reason that was X, Y, Z. And I was just like, to hell with it. I deleted the whole thing and I built it from scratch. I was like, you're not ready here. I was very disappointed, but I do think that there is a degree that everyone, kind of from an end user perspective, and that's what I was in this moment, was an end user or a developer end user. You do need to be a little bit skeptical of the results that you pull back. I don't know. Maybe it was running on 3.5. Maybe that was my mistake.
Now, with that close on I couldn't even understand the X, Y, and stuff. I was like, I'm not even holding that in memory. It's early morning for me, but I know for you, it's you're all at the wee hours of the morning now. So with that, thank you for joining us. Have a merry Christmas, and merry means there needs to be lots of wine, eggnog, holiday, family,
cheese,
food.
Lights.
Patriotic stockings. Ciao, ciao.
Love you guys.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye, everyone.